Hey folks, and welcome to the Tech World Human Skills Podcast. It is wonderful to have you with us. You know, there is a huge skills gap in tech, and all the predictions are that it's only going to get bigger. So today we're talking about one potential solution: apprenticeships. Now, our guest today has loads of experience with apprentices. He is the co-founder and technical director of Microsoft partner Elysian IT. So please welcome to the show, Luke Smith. Luke, it is lovely to have you with us.
Hi Ben, thank you for having me today, and I'm really looking forward to talking about IT apprenticeships and how that can help the IT industry.
So for all our wonderful listeners out there, could you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. My name's Luke Smith, and as you've mentioned, I'm the co-founder of Elysian IT. We're an IT managed services consultancy based in the UK, and we provide technical IT services across many different sectors, from professional services, public sector, manufacturing. And those organisations may be of a local based organisation, or they might have a global footprint, and we'll help to support them to implement secure environments, generative AI, application bespoke development, and pretty much anything else in between. And we started the business in 2014, so we're into celebrating our 10th year anniversary, which is exciting.
That is exciting time. I have got a few years until I catch you up. Congratulations on 10 years.
Thanks, Ben, and I'm sure you'll get here and beyond as well.
Now, I think, could we start with your background? Because there's a reason that we've got you in to talk about apprenticeships. So I wonder, could you sort of share your background from an apprenticeship perspective?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Well, as a youngster, I was really into IT, and I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by electrical circuit boards and different computer components. My dad's an electrical engineer. So it felt like a natural progression to go into computing, as I sort of had a love for it. And I started a college course. And as a part of the college course, I had a work placement. And through that work placement, I then looked at apprenticeship options. So I ultimately undertook an apprenticeship with the Microsoft consultancy that I worked with back then, and did evening classes. I think they were 2 to 3 nights a week to gain my H&C in computing. And at the same time, I was working full time for that Microsoft partner, and was gaining the benefits of being paid and also learning about leading edge technologies, as it was back then in the early 2000s.
So a lot of experience then. That was your kind of entryway into apprenticeships. And then what about now? Because you're still involved in apprenticeships now. So in what capacity are you involved in apprenticeships now?
Yeah, no, let me go through that. So one of the things that we've done as Elysian IT is that we know that IT skill is important. So from the very first days of starting the organisation, we've always been engaged with apprenticeship schemes and bringing on new individuals and giving them the education to gain that deeper insight. So yeah, from our side, I guess through my learnings as an apprentice, and then seeing the benefits that has given to to myself, and also through that journey, with other organisations I've worked for, we've also used apprentices and worked with giving skills to those apprentices, um, that are valuable within this day and age. So it just seemed a logical course for us to sort of continue that journey and sort of help to sort of educate that an IT workforce.
Mm. Yeah, and also, I've had some good experience with apprentices. I will say, my background was a bit more, we'll come on to this later, but a bit more traditional, which was I did a degree at university and then I got onto a graduate program. That was the way that I got into tech. But then I've managed many apprentices over the years, interviewed apprentices, and found them to be really powerful and really good things. So it's great to kind of have that conversation. And I think perhaps if we now sort of back up a little bit and think a little bit more about the challenges, so what's the space that we're in, what challenges are there, and then I guess why do we think apprenticeships are really valuable? So if we start there, what's the challenge at the moment? Why do we need things like apprenticeships?
Well, I guess the first place to start is around skill. Um, Definitely from what I've seen through maybe the younger generation is not necessarily having the capability to be able to fully understand the IT stack, but also just a general lack of IT resources within the industry. So there seems to be a lot less individuals coming in, which is making recruitment much harder, and also having that back knowledge from an IT perspective.
Right, okay. And it's funny that you say that, because I think in many ways, certainly I think around my kids and that kind of stuff. They've grown up with tech, they've grown up with digital, and so their digital skills are really strong. But I guess what you're talking about there is the behind the scenes bit. They get that the phone works with a click or a swipe, but what they don't know is all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, which when you were young, you had to build that out yourself, I guess, because you were a bit of
Yeah,
a geek at heart.
yeah, yeah. No, you're absolutely right, Ben. I think IT's progressed so quickly that a lot of the technical skill sets that people, I guess, think they're gaining doesn't sort of give them that true um, technical background that we had to go through. So, as you've mentioned, the example of taking a device like an iPhone out of the box and it's just connected to the internet, or the ability to install a piece of software onto your computer, such as your word processor or a computer game. Back when I needed to do it, and I'm sure the same for you, Ben, was that you needed to have a much more technical knowledge background to be able to do those exercises. And you might think,
Yeah,
well, the IT's become so much more simplified. Why would you need to go back? And why would you need to know how a network card is initialized and what an IP address is used for and how you troubleshoot it? But in a IT business, there is still need to be able to troubleshoot those more highly technical skills that are not necessarily coming through, and there is a lack of that skill within the industry. So
yeah,
it's more about giving people that baseline understanding on how you troubleshoot a network card. Why is the machine not on the internet? How can I go about root cause analysis, and how can I go about troubleshooting it? And that's across all
mm,
the technologies. We now have a world of a low code world, which is fantastic because business users, citizen developers can build solutions quite quickly, but they can also not understand how that's being created, and they might not realize how they could expand what that solution is doing. They may see it as being very prescribed and restrictive, when actually, as having more of a developer background, you would understand that you could create stall procedures, you could use CSS to style what an application looks like. So it's great. The technology is much more simplified to use nowadays than it was back in our day, but it also means that there isn't enough knowledge to sort of back up around how you would go about troubleshooting. And that's what I'd say I'm sort of seeing in the industry, is that there's not enough skill to be in the marketplace that can undertake those technical troubleshooting techniques or that
yeah,
deeper application development knowledge.
yeah. And so I guess the more traditional route of getting entry level tech, so people that are new and early to the tech career, would have been university, which is the route that I went down. But I guess that isn't the perfect solution for everybody. I mean, the things that spring to my mind as some of the challenges with university is, firstly, you seem to be left with immense debt.
Yes.
I had some good university debts as I came out of it, and that is a drop in the ocean compared to the scale and the size of the debts that people are coming out with university now. So that seemed to be a challenge. The other challenge was it's all very theoretical because you've just spent 3 or 4 years at a university, and it's not the hands-on reality of how that tech is going to get used in the real world. That seemed to be, and then the other thing was, sometimes the tech that I did at university, which was a long time ago anyway, but the tech I was using then was even more dated. And I think, that's often still the case. You're learning about tech that isn't the cutting edge stuff that perhaps is needed and is actually being used in industry. It's some stuff that might be maybe great for teaching, but it's not that reality of what they're going to use. So maybe these are some of the challenges with the typical university approach at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that, the universities have improved the curriculum, but still the curriculum is still slightly behind. So, as you're probably aware, technology is changing almost on a monthly basis, and it can be difficult to have curriculum that is kept, in line with and up to date with how that technology is moved forward. So the apprenticeship gives you the hands-on experience of how that technology is evolving and how customers, organizations are consuming it, and then they are able to apply that knowledge directly. But also with the educational background that can give them some of the fundamentals in regards to how core programming should be undertaken, what the core components are within a computer, but enriched with being having that placement within an organization where they are utilizing that technology for real. So universities definitely have a place, and there are definitely courses which allow for newer tech, but it's that ever evolving technology stack that this is really, I think it really helps to sort of engage people in and give them that learning.
Yeah. So for those people that haven't come across apprenticeships before, how do they work? And I guess our experience is more UK focused, but apprenticeships aren't limited to the UK. They're available in many countries around the world. And having done a bit of digging, they seem to be a similar sort of format to the experience we've got. So, what do they work? How do they work, these apprenticeships at the moment?
Yeah, so we can talk about it from two parts really. One from the apprentice side, and then one from the employer. So, from an employer perspective, at least here within the UK, what you typically do is to subscribe to an apprenticeship scheme, and that scheme is run by a training academy, and there is funding that's provided through the government to help facilitate the costs that are associated to it. So in
Okay.
our example, we currently use an organisation called iTech. They are throughout the UK, but we're based in Basingstoke, so we use the local Basingstoke College to facilitate that. What then happens is you sign up to that apprenticeship scheme, and then the iTech, or the organisation that's running it, will then provide you with some apprentices, and those apprentices could either come through the organisation that you're working with, or it can come through the government portal. So there's a portal that apprentices can sign up to, and then they can request a position within our organisation, or we can look within that catalogue to see who is local to us that would like to be on that apprenticeship scheme. There is another route. You can, as an organisation, you can also publicise a role, and that role you might then nominate. It might be an apprenticeship role that you're looking for, and that you could then yourself put that new employee or existing employees through that apprenticeship scheme. So sort of two ways that you can find an individual or multiple individuals to be on that scheme itself. And then what
Okay.
happens is that the organization that you're working with, that academy, they will look to request funds from the government, and that will help to pay ultimately for the training that that student is getting, that apprentice is getting.
And that training you can get different levels of apprentices, can't you? So you can get people that are doing degree level apprenticeships. You can get people that are at age 16 doing almost like A level type apprenticeships as well. So there's
Correct.
different levels of education and different lengths of apprenticeships.
That's absolutely right. So what we've typically been doing is the ones that are related to an NVQ level 3, and that is what
Okay.
you've mentioned is around the A level sort of standard. So they'll end up doing as a part of that sort of English, as well as doing the more formal computing training, and that would be done as I say, either as evening classes or a dedicated day out of the 5 days that we actually work ourselves. And the other thing
Right.
that they'll also do is enrich um, that educational level, NVQ in this case, with for us at least, Microsoft certification. So as a part of the program, they can also gear your apprentice not only to gaining an NVQ or a HND or a degree, but also gain industry accreditations. And in our case, that would be the Microsoft certifications that would be needed for that particular role that that individual is doing. So you might be more of a um, infrastructure help desk type individual, or you might be more of a developer, application developer, and therefore align Microsoft accreditations in that way, or industry led accreditations.
So just thinking about that from an apprentice's perspective, so you kind of come out of the program with certifications. Let's start with academic certifications, whether that's MVQ, HND, or if you're on the A level the degree programs that I've also had people on. So you come out with that formal certification there. You also come out with on the job experience. You also come out with industry certifications that have been useful for you in your job. Um, and the government has paid for the education part, and you, the employer, have given them wages, so they have been paid. So they sort of come out of the apprenticeship with a certification, industry certification, and less debt and some real world experience.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, when you sort of put it like that, Ben, in that nice summary, you sort of like, why wouldn't you? In a way, you're
Yeah.
you're gaining all that experience and having a much lower debt as a course of that process.
So that's great from an apprentice perspective as to why that's so good. What about if we flip this round? You know, you're running a company. What's the benefit to you as an employer of having apprentices and taking people very early in career, particularly if you're talking, the MVQ apprentices, they're sort of 16-year-olds, that sort of age, of taking people that sort of age, um, and investing, I guess, a lot of time and energy into them because you're helping to develop their skills. Um, what's the benefit to you as an employer?
Well, ultimately, we get to sort of shape somebody into how we operate as an organization, our way of working, our ethos, and that molding of that type of individual, which I think is, quite important. And you typically find that those individuals will stay with you for longer because you put a lot of time and energy into it. The skill that they gain out of it is very beneficial from that side. So the stickiness of an individual, and the other thing as well that the apprenticeship scheme provides is um, a teacher effectively who is or a coordinator who's working with us as an organization to help improve that skill of the individual. So although there is effort from us as an organization to make sure that they are working on projects, they've got uh, that they're working through their curriculum, that is also supported by the academy, the university, the college on that course as well. So we have an individual outside of our company that will help our apprentices to, give them that educational coursework for them to work through and give us some guidance on the sort of things that we could be doing to help educate those individuals as well. So, yeah, I would say that you've got the
And how
stickiness.
long? So how long? Sorry to interrupt you there. How long does it take until you start seeing some value back from the apprentice? Where they're contributing in a way where you think, actually, there's now value versus the energy and the salary we're giving them versus them giving us something of value back to the company. How long does that sort of take on average?
Yeah, as you say, I think on average, because every individual is slightly different, but you could typically see, a real sort of value after a year, sort of that
Okay.
initial on ramp that you can then start to see the benefit coming into the organization. It might be slightly longer, it might be slightly shorter, but it would be
Yeah.
typically around that sort of period of time.
That you start to see that, and then certainly with in the UK, there you are not committed to your apprentice, or are you committed to your apprentice beyond the end of the apprenticeship? So let's say it's a 4 year degree apprenticeship that somebody was doing. At the end of that 4 years, are they guaranteed a job at the end, and are you committed to them at the end of the apprenticeship, or is it just you're committed for the duration of the apprenticeship?
So you're committed for the duration of the apprenticeship. However, I like to look at it that because the investment we're given to those individuals, that we want to invest in them beyond their apprenticeship and take them on as a full-time employee, adding value into the organisation. But you don't have to commit at the end of that
Yeah.
period.
Yeah, yeah. So it might make sense perfectly for them to come onto a full-time employee salary band, because that's the thing that would be different to an apprentice salary band, and to come onto that and then be, contracted in the same way that normal full-time employees would be, and all of that kind of stuff. So that may be the things that both of you want to do, and hopefully, if it's all going well, then that's the route that you follow. But if it hasn't gone well for whatever circumstance, and that could be that the apprentice perhaps doesn't want to do this and isn't looking forward to doing this, or terribly the business doesn't have space and headcount at the moment to offer an FTE opportunity, that you can get out at the end of it. Nobody wants to, ideally, but that's still available to employers.
Yeah, it is. As I say, I've always looked at it as that they would be onboarded as a full-time employee into the organization, but for whatever reason, it may
Yeah,
not, it may not materialize in that way, and that may not be down to you as an organization. As you say, that might be
yeah.
the apprentice decided that they wanted to take a different avenue. They want to maybe join a different organization. That's absolutely possible.
Yeah. So it seems to me like, a great way to fill the skills gap, a great way to get some untapped potential. And also, I'm thinking back to a podcast I did now with Neil Marley a few episodes ago on social mobility, where, for many reasons, university might not be the route that people want to take. And so therefore an apprenticeship maybe gives you a more diverse pool of talent to hire from. So it's going to get you different people that maybe come into your organisation early in career that help you with your skills gap. But the downside of that is you're going to need to invest some time into managing those people as they are so early in career. So I guess we thought about that from an employer's perspective. From an apprentice's perspective. So if anybody's listening this and wants to send this episode on to somebody that's early in career and thinking about maybe an apprenticeship is the right thing for them to do next. Any tips that you'd have for people that are thinking that they themselves want to get into an apprenticeship program and maybe how to prep for it?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say, first of all, you want to be passionate in the apprenticeship scheme that you're going into. And apprenticeships are beyond IT, but I would say you need to sort of be passionate in that subject. You don't have to really know the in depths of how it would work, because that's what the apprenticeship scheme is there for, is to help educate an individual in that particular area. But I would say that you need to sort of show some passion for that particular subject area. I'd also say that as an apprentice, you still go through an interviewing process. So, the potential employer that you want to sort of join, you'll need to have an interview with them to see if you'd like to be onboarded into that particular role. And when it comes to that, I would recommend highly that you sort of do a little bit of background to the company that you're looking at joining. You don't have to know the ins and outs of what they do, but probably a little overview, looking on their website, what they're doing and what they are putting out as a message would be a key thing to understand. From our perspective, we do managed services and we provide consultancy services. So having a little background to that, and we're a Microsoft partner, would definitely benefit you when you go through that interview. And I think then also sort of dress appropriately for the interview as well. Come prepared for it, and look the part. I would definitely say would be, giving you some great ticks in the box. So it's really those three items, I would say: the keen interest in the subject, coming prepared about knowing what the company is doing, even at just a high level, and sort of dressing sensibly for it.
Yeah. And I'm sure if you just jump around YouTube a little bit, you can find loads of tips and loads of videos on interview prep techniques and all of that kind of stuff to try and maximise your chance. I mean, if I just sort of flip back to the fact that sadly I'm now a little older than I wish I was. I remember managing apprentices when we went through the COVID pandemic, and it was very different for me as a people manager, managing somebody that was very much earlier in career, but also just earlier in life, versus managing somebody that was around my age, that had their own house, their own office, their own whatever, as opposed to somebody that is perhaps sharing a bedroom with a sibling, doesn't have a desk, and is very early in life, very different life circumstances. And as a manager, the things I needed to do, the skills I needed to show, and the way I needed to manage the situation with apprentices was very different. So it's also for those, wanting to develop their people management skills, it's a great way to build another set of skills that are really useful in life as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think as you've mentioned, managing people who come from the background of having a longer tenure in employment, and having their own house and outgoings, and having to manage their own life and paying mortgages, to a youngster who is still at home is completely different. And you I guess in a way you end up becoming that mother or father figure to them as well, in trying to guide them and help them through their experiences. It's not necessarily always for the faint-hearted as a company or a manager, but it definitely adds and enriches what you do on a day-to-day basis. And you reap the rewards from that apprentice as you've been working with them, and being able to mold them into something that suits you as an organization and as an individual.
Yeah. Look, I just glanced at the clock and we are almost out of time. So before we finish, what would the highlights or the key takeaways that you'd like everybody to take from this podcast?
Well, I guess the first one is for businesses, and the first thing I'd like to say is definitely look at investing in the apprenticeship schemes. Check on the government websites for apprentices, and as we've mentioned, they're not just for the UK, USA, and further afield. Look at the process that you need to go through, and start that journey. And then for the apprentices, or someone looking at coming into employment, once again, look at the apprenticeship schemes that are available. If you're coming out of school, the schooling system will have careers advisors that will sort of point you in the right direction on where apprenticeships lay. But also maybe for the older generation that are looking at wanting to change what they're doing from a career perspective. Once again, the government website for apprenticeships is another place to go and look at maybe wanting to change what you're doing on, currently into a different particular role. And the apprenticeships are there to support both youngsters as well as sort of adult educators as well.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. I think from my perspective, it is that, as an employer, you can help shape the future with some great talent from different backgrounds that is quite cost effective to you to bring, you get them at a relatively lowish salary whilst they're an apprentice, and give you some good value, certainly for that second year and beyond, as we were talking about. So they're good things to think about from an employer perspective. And then I think about it then from an apprentice perspective. I mean, my kids are still too early to do this, but if if the world carries on as it is, I would definitely think about, right, university is potentially one option for them. Apprenticeship's definitely another option for them. Both have got their pros and both have got their cons. I think when I was a kid, the only really way to get into tech was either you got a job straight at 18 or you went to university and got on a graduate scheme. It felt like those were the two ways into tech. And it feels like that apprenticeships is a very viable and potentially the best way to get into tech. So it's definitely something I consider. Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing all that, Luke. Final thing, how can people get hold of you? If people either want to find out and ask you questions about apprenticeships or find out about Elysian IT, where can people go to find out and contact you?
Yeah, definitely. So you can find us on LinkedIn at Elysian IT. You can visit our website, just Google Elysian IT, and they're going to be the best ways to sort of connect and reach out. And would be more than interested to listen to other people's stories or apprentices that are looking for jobs. More than welcome to reach out.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, so I'll put those in the show notes so everybody can, in case you didn't know how to spell it, Elysian, it's Elysian. It always catches me out, but I'll pop all that in the show notes. So the only thing for me to say is, Luke, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to us.
No problem. Thank you, Ben. And take care, everyone.